Welcome to this session. I'm going to be talking about some ideas, some tips for how you might join in or take part in becoming a leader. We'll walk through some things. A lot of times when people are asked to step into leadership roles, they get this. They're given a rosy picture of what leadership's going to look like. It's going to be people all working together. It's great collaboration. But oftentimes we're scared of what reality is going to look like. And we're a little concerned about the people we might have to work with or people that we might have to work for. So welcome. I'm Jim Holmes. I work for Centric Consulting. There's my email info right there. Please feel free to reach out to me if you've got questions or you want to discuss something after the talk. Leadership's very important to me. I'm very passionate about it, and I'm hoping I can help you along the way. So first off, slides. There's a file. There's a message in the sessions and schedule channel in the Teams team. You can find my deck there. I also post all my things up on speakerdeck.com. Before we get in, though, I need to make a shout out to the sponsors that make this great event possible. Running a conference is not easy stuff. I've helped with quite a few. And these sponsors here have made this possible, and they made it possible as a free event. So by all means, please stop by the various channels and thank them for helping support this event. Secondly, there's an charity event that's going on supporting Chicago Public Schools. You can find out more information about it. Again, you can hit the deck and find like the QR codes and whatnot. And a note from our organizers and me as well. Feedback about conferences is crucial. Help us improve what we do. Me as a speaker, the organizers as event hosts. So kindly take a little bit of time. It's really important. So much my talk, many of the workshops I give on leadership, a lot of the coaching and mentoring I do, I've wrapped up a lot of those thoughts in a book, The Leadership Journey. It's hosted out on LeanPub, and I'm not trying to sell it. There's actually a URL here where I'm giving away 30 free copies. And if for some reason we got more than 30 people in this talk and you don't manage to snag one, hit me up an email and I'll make sure you get hooked up. But that book it's a short book and it's full of really practical lessons learned, and it's full of some exercises to kind of help you think through a number of things about being a leader or moving into leadership. And there'll be a lot of really good overlap with what you're going to hear in this session. So my goals for you to take out of this session, I'd like you to learn how to understand the business, the organization that you work for. It's important to know how you as a leader are helping them do their work better. And also you need to understand what that organization, what the business expects of you. I'd like you to learn some ideas for thinking about improving your communication. Communication is crucial. And a lot of times we IT geeks don't do well at it, but you can learn how to be a good communicator. Prioritization is critical because if you can't effectively prioritize, you're not empowering yourself to focus in on the most high value things. And oh, by the way, part of that is learning how to say no. I'd also like to get you some ideas about things you might explore to help you grow in your own skill set and your how you're going to take your journey as a leader. And at the end of the day, I'd like you to leave with a roadmap or a list of ideas you could hopefully go back and apply at work tomorrow, or well, not tomorrow because tomorrow's Saturday, next week. So anything about leadership needs to start with the question, do you want to lead? And no is an allowable answer here. I think there's some things why you should lead, but no is always an answer. There may be consequences. If you work for an organization that limits your career, if you don't step into a management or leadership role, well, that's a consequence of saying no. So be thoughtful when thinking about whether or not you actually want to step into a leadership role. I think that you should consider leadership. So, in many places, there's simply a need. And this may be in your IT organization where there's someone needing to mentor a couple people, and it's not an official leadership role, but it's a leadership activity. Maybe it's a community engagement. While this talk centers around IT-like things, there's all kinds of needs in community for things like Cub Scout Pack Masters, which I've done in the past. I also think that leading is a great way to achieve some self-fulfillment. By helping others, you can help yourself. You're solving problems, you're mentoring, you're helping somebody else improve their own career. And I think as humans, for the most part, we enjoy helping others and we get a bit of self-actualization out of that. And at the end of the day, we have too few good leaders. Think back to your career and people you've worked for, people you've worked around. Have there been a whole lot of really good inspirational leaders that were awesome at getting things done? I'm not even going to get into the political situation, but just look around at those people that you've worked for directly or that you've seen run organizations. Are all of them great? No, absolutely not. There are a lot of bad leaders out there, and I'd like to see more IT folks step into roles of being good leaders. Okay, so what makes a great leader? Let's talk about this for a while. If you look around at people who you admire as leaders, there are traits and behaviors, characteristics of those people that may inspire you. I run a lot of workshops on leadership, and I regularly open them up asking people to list out a few things that they admire in folks they view as great leaders. And over the years, I've gotten a lot of great responses, but these are some common ones. A great leader is a mentor. They protect their team. They know how to delegate, and they don't micromanage. They solve problems. They're inspirational. And over and over and over again, I hear variants of a good leader is calm and rational. When there's pressure, when the systems are down, when customers are mad, when management and executives are flipping out, a good leader is able to take a breath, ground themselves, and help the team get to a place of rational thought where you can better solve problems rather than reacting out of emotion or getting angry or exploding. A good leader is calm and rational, calm in a storm. Good leaders are great at fostering respect. Years ago, when I was living and working in Germany, one of my colleagues at that time was a fellow who'd been in the British SAS. And that's like some of the most elite commandos in the world. And my colleague Ted had been in the SAS during some extraordinarily tense times. The man had obviously been in combat in places where things were very scary. And he was one of the most calm, chill people I've ever met. And he said something that knocked me back on my feet. And this was probably a good 20, 25 years ago. He said, "You gain respect by giving respect." And that really hit home. You can't demand respect. You have to earn respect. And moreover, when you treat your teammates, when you treat those around you with respect, you're going to get more and more respect for yourself. Hand in hand with that is the notion of integrity. Can you be relied on? When you make a commitment, do you meet it? When things are going bad, are you open and transparent? Years ago, I coined a phrase, integrity is a coin you can't afford to spend. So you gain integrity points by being open, by meeting your commitments that you promise, by being transparent when things are going off the rails, because they always go off the rails. But the moment that you start to shade the truth, the moment that you start to stretch things, oh, yeah, we can meet that commitment next week for shipping, no problem. And everybody knows that's not the case. All of those coins in your integrity box vanish. So you have to protect that integrity. Live up to your commitments. If you can't meet them, be open about it, but don't spend that because you can't afford to. So what makes a great leader great? A great leader great? From the Department of Redundancy. Sorry, I only had 2 cups of coffee this morning. Great leaders have properties that you can learn and emulate. Take some time to look at people who you think are good leaders. Think about what makes them tick, what connects with you, and emulate those things. It's not just that easy, but it's easy to identify them. Putting the work in is a bit harder. So let's talk about getting ready for leadership. Let's say that you're a junior person in an organization, or you're new to an organization and you've been working there for a bit, and you want to make a step toward having a role that has a little bit more responsibility. So there are some things you can do for preparing for that role. First off, learn the mission. Every organization, regardless of whether it's a nonprofit or a publicly held company or a governmental agency, they all have a mission. There's something they're trying to do, some audience they're trying to serve. The Literacy Council is a wonderful organization that teaches adults who can't read how to read. That particular mission hits really home with me. I had to do 5th grade twice, and I couldn't read until the 2nd time. That organization has a mission to serve adults who can't read. Maybe your organization helps speed up credit referral processes or insurance processing, right? What is the organization's mission? Learn that. Demonstrate some interest, some competency, show some hard work. I'm a firm believer that in good organizations, hard work gets noticed and recognized. And simply stepping up to the plate and taking on and doing good work shows that you are moving in the right direction. Also, don't be afraid to let your supervisor or your team lead know that you're ready for more responsibility. And be realistic about this. If you're new to the position, you're not going to ask to run an entire department, but maybe there are things that you can do to help the team. Look at helping run the continuous delivery pipeline. Oh, you don't have a CD pipeline? Maybe take on building one up. Ask for more responsibility and let people know that you're open to it and you're interested. So one of the biggest hindrances for moving into leadership for a lot of people is some anxiety. And in particular, for those folks who are in IT, there's some angst around technical skills. And over the years, I hear this repeatedly. There are 2 major ones. First off, I'm going to lose my technical skills. I'm a great developer. I'm an awesome tester. And I'm worried about losing my game. Well, yeah, maybe, but at the end of the day, you can deal with it. If you want to keep those technical skills sharp as you're changing roles, look at different ways to scratch that itch. One of them just might be pairing with smart teammates. If you're a developer and you sit down with another developer to work on a feature, you're having to do the muscle memory coding. You're having to do the critical thinking. You're having to write tests. Better yet, maybe broaden out your skills. Make yourself even better as a lead by understanding different roles. If you're a developer, don't just pair up with a developer. Sit down with a tester. Oh my God, yes, you can do that. Sit down with a tester and work on exploratory testing sessions. Find out how the testers are doing combinatorial test case generation. Whatever. Sit down with a BA and learn more about the business domain. Broaden your skills. The next major fear that I repeatedly hear is, I don't have the technical knowledge to lead a team. Maybe it's a person who's been in a testing domain or a business analyst or program manager, and they're being asked to step up to a team lead position. Well, that can be kind of intimidating because you don't know how to answer technical questions. You don't know how to help a tester build combinatorial test matrices. You don't know how to write web services, and you can't help that developer do that. So That can be intimidating. No, you probably, not just you might not, you probably don't have all those skills. But you know what? Do you actually need them? And I'd say in the most cases, you don't. Your team is strong. So you being able to say, you know what? I don't know that, but let's figure it out. I don't know that, but I know somebody who may know that. It's okay not to know everything. So those two major fears that a lot of people have are things you can work around. But now we got to get to the hard stuff, which is communication. And those of us in IT have a long history, a reputation of being poor communicators. And we need to own that. We need to get better at it. One of the most important things to understand is that good communication is not about you, it's about your audience. You have to understand that audience. You need to understand their motivation. You need to understand how they like to hear information, how they are best able to process things when you're trying to make a persuasive case for something. And understanding how that audience, whether it's one person or a group, understanding how they're made up, their personality traits can be a huge help. There are a number of different personality trait frameworks. Myers-Briggs is one. I, over the last 10 years, have become a big fan of DISC. You can Google it up, and it stands for Decisive, Interactive, Stability, and Cautious. And these are traits of individuals, and it impacts how that person likes to get information so that they can act on it. And this was important because understanding what your traits are helps you bridge gaps to others. So the decisive person is that typical kind of hard-charging, fast decision maker. They want one PowerPoint slide with 3 bullet points on it, and that's how they're going to best make their decisions. An interactive person enjoys conversations. They enjoy storytelling to share more details around what's going on there. So think about when an interactive person meets a decisive person, and the interactive person is making big, long stories about motivation and business value, and all the things may be hit, but that decisive person is like, you've been talking for 10 minutes. I got another call in 3 minutes. I'm done. By learning how the other person needs to hear information, you can best make your case during good communication. So there are a number of DISC evaluations freely available out on the internet. Tony Robbins has a great one. I will fess up, I haven't retaken that in years. The point being, you go through a series of questions, and the more questions they ask, the better you'll get. There are some that like do 5 questions, hogwash. So I'd encourage you to research DISC and other personality trait frameworks to help you build understanding of that audience. Now, broadly speaking, one of the big fears people have when moving into a leadership position is communicating during tense situations. So the system's down, or we need to slip the schedule, or stakeholders are demanding that we add more scope into a fixed schedule. And this happens over and over again. This is human. And sometimes you get put in very intense situations. Now, here's the thing. Only a tiny fraction of us are involved in jobs where we have to have immediate responses. People who are in safety-oriented environments, people who are running network operations centers where if communication is down, you're losing huge amounts of money every moment that communication is down. People in the military on the front lines. If lives are at stake, you do have to respond quickly. But for the vast majority of us, despite someone being in your face, either in person or in email, and demanding immediate answers, no, they don't need answers. And they don't need them immediately. And you need to give yourself the grace and the power of allowing yourself to get your head in the right space. So let's talk physiology of stress for a moment. You know, the fight, flight, and freeze reflexes are proven bits of psychology that translate directly to physiological reactions. When you get angry, when people are yelling at you, when it is a tense situation, your body physically tenses up. As the stress increases, you generate more and more adrenaline. Your vision literally tunnels in and your muscles change and your brain function alters. There's science behind this. So if you are in tunnel vision, if your brain function is changing because someone is in your face yelling, how effective is any response you make going to be? Sometimes it requires you literally putting your hand up between you and someone who is yelling at you and saying, 5 minutes, please, and leave the space. I've had to do this before when several times when someone had this explosive reaction and my reaction wasn't being helpful. And I had to disengage and leave the room. The thing is, you don't leave the room and leave. You leave the room, you take 2 or 5 minutes, no more. You get your breathing back into space. You try to get your head on back. And then you need to go back into the situation to try to resolve it. And when you engage after having broken that communication, you need to acknowledge it. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to get my head back on straight. We're both very upset about this, but we're passionate about it and we want to get a resolution. So let's reset our attitude. Let's reset the communication and move forward from there. Is it that easy? No, it's not. But if you're aware of it and you practice it a little bit, it is a invaluable tool for you to diffuse situations and re-engage to try to get a solution. And by the way, don't hit send on that angry mail. Don't respond in anger. I have sent way too many mails that I later regretted because it didn't help resolve the situation. So learn to wait 5 or 10 minutes. Unless someone's life is on the line, that other person really doesn't need an immediate response. Okay, let's move on to less tense things. I've talked about understanding the business, and in particular, we need to think about how we communicate with them, what we understand about them. Why do we need to do that? Because the business, at the end of the day, writes our paycheck. We want the business to be successful. So learning to communicate in the language of your business is important. And you need to learn that language by learning more about the business. You know, understand who the customers are, understand how the sales process works so that you can speak in that language to better understand how you are going to contribute value to your organization. People in IT are rarely directly earning money or fulfilling the mission for the organization. Most of the time, we're trying to support sales. Most of the time, we're trying to support data engineers who are building credit models, other things, right? We have to understand how we contribute to that mission. Who do you help and how do you go about helping those specific people? Well, as part of learning all of this, I'd encourage you to spend time talking with your supervisor, with your boss, with your lead. When you get a better picture, let them know that you'd like to go up the chain. And I'd encourage you to grab a copy of my book because I've got a couple exercises specifically around this that walk you through how you can learn more and more by going up the chain and having productive, even just coffee breaks with leaders and executives. So as you're looking to get ready for leadership, I'd encourage you, have a look at what fears you have around moving into leadership. Work through them. Let people know that you're ready for more responsibility. You have to work hard on communication skills, and you need to learn more and more about the business itself. Excuse me while I get a quick drink here. Okay. Excuse me. So now let's talk about what being a great leader looks like. You've gotten the opportunity, someone's given you the chance and put you in a leadership role. Maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's running a small team, maybe you've got a group or a department. First and foremost, it's important to understand what your own weaknesses are and figure out actions you can take to mitigate those weaknesses. Now, first and foremost, a lot of people in IT deal with some form of imposter syndrome. Some of us talk a lot about our own struggles with it. Some people don't feel comfortable about it. But the thing is, imposter syndrome is a known psychological concern. There's lots of good writing on it. It's in the DSM handbook that psychologists and psychiatrists use as a reference manual. And there's a wide range of impacts from imposter syndrome. It's the notion that I feel I'm not good enough to be in the job. I'm an imposter. I'm fake. And I'm worried that someone is going to find out how much of a fraud I really am at this position, and they're going to see I'm no good at it and that I'm hurting the organization. And it's all of these fears that can build up to an irrational, harmful state. In its most extreme, imposter syndrome may require people getting some help from mental health professionals. But in the lesser impacts, we can help ourselves work through some of that feeling of not being worthy, of not being good enough. And I found that one of the most important things is actually keeping a physical journal. So I've got any number of notebooks on my desk where I write things down physically. Physically writing something down, there's science that proves that's more beneficial than typing stuff into OneNote or some text file. Keep track of your successes. Keep track of your wins. And the thing is that when you are down in the dumps and you're having one of those horrible, rotten days, and yes, they're going to happen, you can go to that journal and you can look back through the journal pages and you can say, wow, I helped Tina with this SQL query. I got some interesting test coverage done. I had a great meeting with the stakeholder, right? So I've got this list of wins and successes, and that helps me realize, you know what? I don't suck as bad as I was making myself think I did. So learning to deal with that is really crucial. And frankly, that's important regardless of whether you're a leader or a team member. Being open and transparent about your weaknesses is a really crucial thing that ties back to integrity. I don't hide the fact that there's all kinds of stuff I don't know. I've been doing software development of one form or another for a number of decades. I'm an old guy. I've been deep into test automation for the last 10 or 15 years. I still don't know how to reliably write web service calls because I don't do it very often, but I'm open about that. And I'll admit to people, hey, I got to do some web service testing. I need your help because I got to have somebody help me figure out the whole authorization ceremony, blah, 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 right? If you're open about that and you acknowledge them and you show that you're working with those, the weaknesses are not something to be as concerned about. You should work to address them, but be open about it, be honest. One of the biggest helps that I've found over the years is having an accountability partner, somebody who is not necessarily a mentor, but rather is there to hold you accountable. I know that I take on way too much work because at my core, I feel really strongly about helping people, and I want to make people feel that they're getting their job done because I'm helping them achieve their goals. It's very service oriented, but that can be bad when I take on this work and this other work, and here, let me help you with these two things, and all of a sudden, I'm not meeting any of those commitments, and that kind of ties back to integrity. So I've found it very helpful to have an accountability partner that I might meet with once a week or once every other week, who simply asks me, Jim, how's your workload? Are you shipping and are you meeting commitments? And that accountability partner needs to be someone you trust and feel safe asking those hard questions. They're holding you accountable to ensure that you're not falling victim to your own weaknesses. So that's like the negative stuff. And it's not negative because you just acknowledge it and you figure out how to deal with it and you move on. Everyone has strengths. You absolutely have strengths that I don't know what are. Maybe you're technically expert in one certain situations. Maybe you're good at conflict resolution. Who knows? Take some time and list out your strengths. List out things that you do well and learn how to do more of those, right? It may sound trite, but it's not. If you're good at something, then get known for being really good at that. Yes, you should broaden out your skills, but the thing you're really good at, that T-shape, the specialization skills that you have, be awesome at them. And by the way, take what you're awesome at and help somebody else. Mentor and pass someone else. One of the biggest, frankly, the biggest satisfaction I have is when I can work with somebody and help them improve in an area that they're weak at. Maybe it's one of my specializations, maybe it's something else, but mentoring and passing things on is powerful, powerful stuff. Oof, okay, let me get another quick drink here. Okay, let's actually talk about what a day in the life of a leader looks like. And this is just a few things that I find come to the forefront when somebody's working any type of leadership role. So managing expectations, how many times have you heard that phrase? I have to manage expectations of leadership around the next release. I have to manage schedule expectations. The thing is that expectation management is both up to managing expectations around timeline, around scope, around things like we need time on the books for testing. We need to spend some time boosting up our software craftsmanship skills, blah, 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 whatever. That's managing expectations up. The thing is, we have to also manage expectations for our team members. And particularly in the IT realm, we tend to like the bright new shiny toy. Man, we absolutely got to implement this latest release of React, or Cowbell 5.0.64 just got released, and we need more Cowbell. Managing expectations of the team and keeping the team focused. Look, the new version of React and Cowbell are neat, but it's not helping us solve the problems that we're trying to solve in this sprint, in this release. So keep them off to the side. We'll explore them later, but we're not stopping work to use these new tools. We got to get value delivered, but we'll pay attention to this, right? That's managing expectations down. Part of your job as a leader is to keep people on task. Something else that I've found very useful, takes some practice, it takes some failure, is learning to flip negatives to positives. And as you're doing that, learning how to kind of reframe things in value versus personal. So for example, how many times have you had a really good idea that will solve a significant problem and you run into all kinds of resistance around, oh, that's a good idea, but it won't work. It's a good idea. We've tried that before. That's going to fail because X, Y, Z, insert long list of rationalizations. Now, some of those rationalizations may be based on actual experience. People get beat down and they don't want to try things because it's been tried before or something similar has been tried before and it just flat didn't work. So try flipping that around to a different form. Instead of it won't work, ask that person who's throwing up the resistance. Arguing it won't work because it's unproductive. Instead, see if you can focus on the outcomes. Look, if we do X, Y, and Z, we'll see this result. Do you think this result, just focus on the outcome, focus on the result, is this result something that would be helpful? And if that person is honest and open, forthright, they may like sit back and think a little bit, and they could say, yeah, that'd be good. Or maybe if that plus this other tiny little different thing, right? The point being, focus on the outcome and see if you can get some agreement. And then the next thing is, okay, we think this is good. What would we have to change to make this happen? And you have to be realistic, particularly as you get into things that have larger impact and require more change. Crossing that gap from the current state to the desired state, that's a bigger gap to get organizations and people to jump across. But if you're starting from the thing of, we think this is a good idea, how can we get there? That's a huge help. A lot of times teams can struggle with feeling a sense of success because getting big, hard things done is difficult. It's challenging. Well, the thing of breaking down work and making it into smaller bite-sized chunks is a great way to approach things. And you as a leader can say, wait a minute, we shouldn't focus on this entire soup to nuts CI or CD pipeline. Instead, let's break this down into small tasks. What can we do that will be one quick win? Well, simply wiring up a build server so that we're having remote builds, wiring up some test execution agents so that you can run your UI tests in parallel. If you look at those small things, small successes build to larger successes, and your team becomes self-fulfilling in this attitude and this culture of success. And I don't mean the sometimes negative get it done at all costs. Rather, focus on getting good work done. But you build habits of success. And the military is actually really good at this, regardless of the branch, regardless of whether you're talking brand new enlisted people or butter bar lieutenant commissioned officers. The military focuses on having people build this repetition of small tasks that build up to one another. And there's a retired admiral, William McRaven. He used to be the commander of the Navy SEALs organization. So the Navy SEALs, elite military operators, they are highly trained. They're very intense. And he's got several books on leadership, but in one of them, he talks about starting from one of the most mundane tasks on a daily basis. Make your bed. And this isn't just your mom yelling at you to spread up your bed. Rather, he's making the point that if you start by making your bed every morning, you've already done some small task and you can feel a sense of accomplishment. And when you go back in the bedroom to go to the bathroom to brush your teeth or whatever, that part of the room, you can see there was an accomplishment. It may seem silly, but it's not. So moving from that into what might be one of the harder things that sets off concerns with people moving into leadership or people doing leadership is the actual team management, and particularly things around like feedback and performance reviews, if you have performance reviews in your organization. So there's all kinds of things about how you deal with difficult people. I just thought of this. I didn't put it in the slides, but there's a great book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And it's an extraordinary book for dealing with learning how to deal with interpersonal communication, conflict, a lot of things. But you as a leader need to spend a lot of time taking care of your team, and that means giving constant feedback. You should be setting up regular one-on-one private meetings where you can have effective, safe communication with the people you're working with on your team. I'd encourage you to look at those as a weekly obligation. And I mean that, it's an obligation because spending that time will ensure that your people are always sure of where they stand with you. So when you get to an annual review, there should be zero surprises in that annual review or whatever review with your team members. If there's something that is a positive and the first time they hear about it is during that review, you've missed an opportunity for however long that period was to congratulate and boost their performance. And if a team member hears something negative for the first time in a review, you as a leader have personally failed. That's very strong words. Let me repeat that. If your team member hears something negative for the first time in that annual review or whatever, for the first time, you have personally failed. And that's harsh, but here's the deal. If you haven't identified those problems early and help that team member to work and address them, and then all of a sudden you drop that load of bricks during the performance review, during the annual review, that's a big scale thing, right? It's got big weight and big mental weight. That's a hugely negative experience. Think about the flip side of how that conversation might go. You're sitting down, you say, 6 months ago, you and I discussed these performance problems. We had an action plan, and you've worked through them. I've given you praise through that process, and now I can say you've completely turned that around. That's powerful stuff. So being a great leader, you need to acknowledge your strengths and weaknesses. Be open, explore what they are, mitigate the weaknesses, leverage the strengths, and learn to take care of your team. But it doesn't just stop with the team. You need to take care of yourself right now as well. If you don't already have a mentor, get one. And a mentor is not necessarily your supervisor. Rather, I'd encourage you to find someone out of your reporting chain, someone who can help you identify areas for improvement, someone who can hold you accountable. This isn't just an accountability partner. Rather, this is someone who can help guide you through wisdom and work. And sometimes you might have several mentors, particularly as you get a little more senior in your career, you get a little more experience. You may need a couple different mentors to solve different things. I have mentors who help me in mental health space. I have mentors who help me with coaching techniques. I have mentors that I reach out to when I've got hard testing evolution that I need to go through. So find a mentor now. Well, not right now. Finish the session, then go find a mentor. Become a time management superhero. I've talked about this in a couple different spots during this talk. Learning to prioritize, learning to make value decisions is huge. You have a fixed amount of capacity. Your team has a fixed amount of capacity. There's 40 hours in a week. It is unreasonable and in some places illegal to ask people to work more than that. So here's your capacity. It is what it is. And if you have full capacity and someone from management or your leadership is asking you to do more work, like, look, we need these additional 3 features done. You have now the power to say, we're at full capacity. If it's really important for you to do these 3 other things, what do you want dropped from our current work? Because we can't just add those in. If you want 3 other things, we have to push things out. This is an important way to get to the idea that it's okay to say no. There's a great book called The Trusted Advisor. It's I don't know, probably 20 years old at this point. They talk about the power of saying no. And you can't just be a jerk about saying, no, we're not going to do that. Rather, you want to back it up. You want to be calm. You want to emphasize that you're actually helping them. Look, if we try to take on these three other things here, we're going to end up doing sloppy work. So instead, either let us finish what we're doing or you figure out what we're dropping off so that we can continue to do good work. All of that leads into work-life balance. If you can learn these tricks, if you can learn these practices and habits, then it takes loads of stress off your shoulders. And you're going to be a better, calmer, more rational person. Work-life balance isn't a myth. 10 years ago, I had 2 little kids at home. I was flying all over the world, doing a lot of neat stuff. but I was gone all the time. And on top of that, I was running a user group that I'd helped found, and that was probably another 10 or 15 hours a month. And on top of that, I was helping run a really wonderful conference for developers and just software delivery teams. And I was probably putting in a good 800 or 900 hours a year on that. So do the math. So with my kids, I was the dad who was always tired and usually grumpy. So I had to refactor my life a bit, change some things around, because work-life balance is a thing and it matters. So I want to encourage you as you move into leadership roles, or if you're in a leadership role already, take care of yourself. Find a mentor to help you grow. Learn how to say no. We're kind of coming to the wrap-up session here. We need good leaders. There is an absence of good leadership in so many domains. Not talking about politics, not going there. In our work, in our communities, in volunteer organizations that we're involved in. You can learn to be an awesome leader. Everybody has that skill. I firmly believe that there are a handful of people who are born with innate leadership qualities. The rest of those great leaders have learned how to do it. You need to deal with your fears. You need to understand those weaknesses. You have to learn the business. If we're working on an IT team, we generally don't earn money. We have to support people that are earning money. We have to support that mission. We've got to have a clear picture of it. You got to take care of your team. You need to understand how to manage those humans that are working with you and for you. And you need to take care of yourself. So again, I'll remind you, there's a copy of my book out there if you're interested. Take some time and go back and thank the conference organizers. They have been doing crazy amounts of work. But at the end of the day, thank you for attending, and I hope you found this session useful. So I finished about 10 minutes early. If somebody's got some questions, you can pop them in the chat channel, and I can reach out. And I'll stick around for a couple minutes, but regardless, thanks a bunch for showing up.